Welcome to the Group Dentistry Now show, the voice of the DSO industry. Kim Larson and Bill Newman talk to industry leaders about their challenges, successes, and the future of group dentistry. Visit groupdentistrynow.com for more DSO analysis, news, and events. Looking for a job or have a job to fill? Visit joindso.com. We hope you enjoy today's show.
And I'd like to welcome everybody to the Group Dentistry Now show. And we have a special guest with us. We've had the ADSO represented on now. This will be our second podcast. The first one was with Luc LaLiberté, and that was back in August, September timeframe. And now really nice to have Chris Badgley, who is the Executive Director of the ADSO. Chris, welcome to the Group Dentistry Now show.
Thanks a lot, Bill.
So I'll give you a little background on Chris here, and it's actually pretty extensive experience. So if I leave anything out, Chris, please fill it in. Chris has extensive experience in government affairs and association management. He led the state government affairs function at Pfizer before moving to that industry's trade association, the industry being the pharmaceutical industry, and the association being the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America Association. He was a senior vice president of government and public affairs, and as acting deputy chief of staff, he managed the pharmaceutical industry's campaign to support passage of the Affordable Care Act. After serving as senior VP of commercial policy and state government affairs at CompTIA, that's the Technology Association of America, he moved back into the pharmaceutical industry. And he's also served on several of the advocacy and public affairs executive committees and advisory boards. And now we're really happy to have him in the DSO space, representing the industry and working with the ADSO as the executive director. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thank you, Bill.
Did I get almost everything right?
Yeah, you got everything good.
Okay, sounds good. So most of our audience probably knows a little bit about the ADSO, but give us a little bit about the background on the ADSO, the mission, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, the ADSO actually started as a study group from some of the largest and earliest players in the DSO space. And over the course of time, evolved into a trade association. So the ADSO is really the trade association that represents the companies that support affiliated doctors, clinicians practicing dentistry. And our real purpose is to expand and make sure that the DSO practice model continues to grow and thrive. We know that it's increasing probably quicker than any other segment of the practice of dentistry, but certainly we want to make sure that that continues and that both the public know and understand what the DSO practice model is, and policymakers as well, so that there aren't any untoward legislative or regulatory initiatives that would retard the progress that might have an impact and actually end up decreasing access or affordability to oral health care.
So that is, you're a busy person. You have a busy team there.
Yeah, we're very small, we're very lean, but we're never wanting for things to do.
That's great. So we're going to talk about a couple different things besides the ADSO itself. We're going to talk about the biggest DSO event in the industry, which is an ADSO event called the Summit. And that event is actually about less than 2 months away, really.
Yeah.
So the event is in National Harbor, so it's actually close to where your offices are, outside of Washington, D.C. So National Harbor, which is in Maryland, and it's at the Gaylord.
Yes, correct.
Yep. And that's March 11th through 13th.
Yep.
So coming up really, really quickly. So tell us a little bit about the Summit.
The Summit's our annual event for our members and guests, both industry partners and DSOs who might not be currently ADSO members, but they're certainly welcome to come and participate. I guess we'll get into it in a couple of moments regarding some of the initiatives that we're looking to do going forward into 2020. but we're restructuring some of our membership to allow for guest DSOs to buy into a membership platform and membership package that gives them access to the annual summit at a price point and a cost that is just slightly more than if they were to come as a guest and pay the full registration fee. So that's one of our initiatives that we're pretty proud of and pretty excited about for this year.
So in the past, if somebody wasn't a member, a DSO wasn't a member of the ADSO and they spent the money to attend the summit, now with the way you've priced it, in essence, they could become a member of the ADSO and it would really cost them about the same thing as just attending the summit.
Yeah, yep.
That's great.
Pretty close.
Yeah, so that's good news. So it's not a member locked event, right? So you talk about guest DSOs, so you don't have to be a member to attend.
Correct. What we do, we are a membership organization. This is a membership meeting, first and foremost. But certainly for those DSOs that might not be aware of what we offer as a trade association to them, they're certainly welcome to come to the meeting as a guest and for 1 year. And then they can decide whether it's worth their time and money to actually join the organization and reap other member benefits that are included in what we do on an ongoing basis for them going forward.
And this is a big event. I think last year you had 1,100. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yeah, close to 1,100 people.
Right.
Just under 1,100.
Yeah. And the Gaylord can certainly accommodate that and more. So that's wonderful. So as far as the summit goes and people being able to attend, so let's say at DSO attendees, we have all different sizes and shapes and models really when we talk about DSOs. So what are the benefits for like a smaller emerging group? Let's say I'm an emerging group and I have 3 or 4 locations. What would I expect at the summit?
It's interesting because we used to have, besides the summit, an event that we called our Partnering for Growth, where our industry partners, vendors, suppliers, distributors would come and partner with some of the smaller DSOs, the emerging DSOs, to help them move forward with their business expansion and their scaling. Actually, now we're combining the Partnering for Growth and the annual summit into one large event, and we have a Partnering for Growth track. So if you're an emerging DSO, there's a Partnering for Growth track that you can come and participate, and it will give you the same types of modularity, whether it's compliance or marketing, revenue management, the things that you might have a pain point in your business as you're trying to scale and trying to grow. And those are kind of like the Reader's Digest condensed versions, the other tracks that we're having, because we are going to have a track on marketing. We are going to have a track on recruiting and retention, so an HR track, a technology track. The good thing about the summit is even if you're an emerging DSO and come primarily, for example, for the Partnering for Growth track, if you see something that interests you in another track, you're not locked into any track. You can skip track and mix and match for what you're trying to look for and get out of how to build and grow your business. The other thing is certainly as a member, is a member value, is that we do have not just this year after the summit, the recordings, the videos from the various sessions that you can go back and look and see if there's a session that you wanted to attend but missed because you were attending something else that was a high priority. You can go back and see not only those sessions that you missed in the 2020 summit, but you can also access other sessions from summits in the past. So again, that's part of the member value that you get, is that you have access to all that great content and to help you grow your business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges. You have so much great content there that you can't possibly be in all tracks at one time. So I just taken a look at the website, and you have tracks like you mentioned Partnering for Growth, which I think is done in panel format, correct? So you've
Yes.
got each section or each piece to the Partnering for Growth, you're going to have 3 or 4 people speaking to whatever that is, whether it's leadership or marketing or compliance. But you also have individual tracks like leadership, growth and development, compliance, technology, human resources. So yeah, there's a lot. So the ability to actually access that after the fact by a video would be great.
Yeah, and those other tracks, as you had mentioned, the more specific non-partnering for growth tracks, which again are in some ways a Reader's Digest condensed version of some of the other tracks, is that our larger regional and our national DSOs often send, for example, their marketing people to the annual summit and attend a marketing meeting. So we are going to have, for example, under marketing, an outreach and revenue generation on a patient side, patient retention and marketing. So again, it's going to be a deeper dive into those areas for those companies that are larger than an emerging, again, a regional or a national, but they have pain points as well. So the summit, it does have segments, does have sessions, but yet there's something in there for everybody. And again, you can mix and match depending on what your interest is, and you can rewind after the summit when the videos are posted on the sessions to see what you might have missed and pick up some nuggets out of that at your convenience.
And if anybody wants to see the individual tracks, they can go to either the ADSO website, or you can go to Group Dentistry Now and go into our events section and find the ADSO Summit and explore that. So that's National Harbor, again, which is outside of Washington, March 11th through the 13th, and it's at the Gaylord. So before we move on to some other things here, because we've got a couple other, you mentioned one of the differences, which is going to be Partnering for Growth. So that used to be a separate meeting, and now it's a track within the summit. So that's one of the big differences. Let's talk a little bit about the industry partners or the vendors. So what can they expect at the summit?
The industry partners, we do have talk tables available. They're in an exhibit area. They're booking very quickly. So if you have an interest as an industry partner and haven't booked that, book it now. The other thing that certainly our industry partners have is the availability to network with C-suite leaders of the ADSO, as well as some of their senior staff. And what our industry partners find a lot of times is that certainly it's easier to come to ADSO and do some of that networking, do some of that marketing of their products, of their activity, and make the connection and possibly uptake with a DSO that may have anywhere from 30 to 800 to 1,000 locations. It affords them the ability to have access to a lot larger market than going to some of the other events where you're getting one-off doctor's office, dental offices, and much smaller groups. Again, the scale of this meeting and the type of networking that can occur here is on a larger scale than most of the other meetings that you might come across during the remainder of the year. So that's the summit, and I don't think I'm allowed to say it, but it's the biggest event. I was going to compare it to a football game, but I don't think I'm even allowed to do that. It's the biggest football game out there. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, because I think that's copyrighted.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it is like that in the DSO space. So definitely worthwhile going to. And the fact that Partnering for Growth is going to be part of that, of the summit now, it's even going to be bigger and more impactful, I think. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's always a lot of fun. The networking opportunities are first class, and then of course the content is abundant. So yeah, you're right. It's kind of nice to have that ability to skip from track to track depending on what you want to be a part of.
Absolutely.
So moving on from the summit, let's talk about the ADSO. So what initiatives do you have for this year? You talked a little bit about changing up the membership options and making it easier for smaller groups or people that were kind of dipping their toe in the water as guest DSOs. Now they can become part of the ADSO for just a little bit more than what they would pay to attend the summit. What else do you have going on?
I think one of the things, and I'm previewing this for this podcast audience.
Okay.
Here's a spoiler alert for those of you that are listening to the podcast. For those who are not, they'll find out at the annual summit. But we have created a program called the ADSO Academy.
Okay.
This is a mentorship type program where some of our larger national and our larger regional DSOs are actually opening up one of their facilities, whether it's a regional office, if it's a national, or coming into headquarters of one of our regional DSOs and having access to the C-suite team and pulling back the curtain on some of the operational stuff that goes on in that DSO. We're going to do these once a quarter for the second, third, and fourth quarters, since our annual summit is in the first quarter of the year, but we're going to have 3 of these a year starting later in 2020. Again, they're going to be limited because of the amount of space that is available at our member locations. Generally, it's going to run anywhere from 20 to, I'd say, 50 on the top end participants. But again, it'll give especially emerging DSOs an opportunity to come in for a 4 to 6 hour period of time in one of our larger member facilities and be shown either marketing, revenue management, C-suite operations. It depends on what the member who's sponsoring that event is showing and showcasing that day. The content's actually going to be put on by that member and the program put on by that member. But it's an opportunity, again, for especially emerging DSOs to come in and see behind the scenes and then also develop a relationship with that C-suite. So as they're scaling, as they might get stuck and hit a pain point, they'll have a number that they can pick up the phone and call somebody in that company and say, look, I'm stuck, or I've got a question that came out of the ADSO Academy that occurred at your company the other day, the other month, and can you answer a question for me? And our members are opening up and willing to do that. So that's going to be a huge value as I see it, especially to create community and create stickiness between all of our members and provide additional comment beyond just the summit.
So you're going to have, that's exciting. So you're going to have 3 different academies within a year. So it'll be Q2, 3, and 4 because the summit's Q1. And there'll be a different ADSO members, so most likely the larger members, right? Yep. I would guess. Yep. And you would have to be a ADSO DSO member to be part of the academy, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, well, that's I'm glad you were able to preview that here. That's big news.
It indeed. I mean, that's probably our largest initiative for the year. There's other things that we're looking to do. One of the things that our members have requested, and even our non-members, as something that we could provide them a value that would attract them as members, is to look at building out our compliance offering. And so one of the things that we're doing as well is we've taken the best practices from many of our largest members and certainly our larger members in terms of what they do for compliance. And although there's a compliance track within the annual summit this year and going forward, no doubt we'll continue to do it. But we're looking at possibly developing an accreditation program for compliance that'll have several different component parts, both developed within ADSO and then other organizations outside of ADSO that are active in a compliance space in a number of areas. And so should you get and complete these modules, we're looking at having an ADSO compliance accreditation program for our members to say we are compliant with ADSO, compliance.
That's great. So 2 big initiatives this year.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, great. You have been busy. So I've got one last question to kind of wrap everything together. So hopefully we'll see everybody that's listening or watching or reading or whatever you're doing to consume this information at the summit. And then hopefully if you're a DSO, you are either already a member of the ADSO or you become a member. And if you're an industry partner, the only way you can get to the event is if you become an industry partner, right? So
Correct.
So tell us, you've had, a little bit over a year now in the DSO space working for ADSO, and your background is pharma, so you came from the pharmaceutical side and you were in technology as well. Give us a little perspective now that you've been in the industry a year and we've gone, so we're at the beginning of a new year or at the beginning of a new decade. What do you see? What does the opportunity look like?
I think the opportunity for DSOs in a lot of ways is still unlimited. I mean, there always is a limit, but there's so much runway still for DSOs to expand and to grow and to improve access, affordability, and quality in the oral healthcare space. Medicine did this type of consolidation and organization 20, 25 years ago. I was involved in that on the medical side. Continued in the pharmaceutical space as the medical side, really organized in a way that DSOs are. But for dentists to be burdened with having to do all the business activity that keeps them away from patient care. We can do so much to improve oral health care in the United States by letting clinicians do what they do best, which is to treat patients, and allow businesses like DSOs to do what they do best, which is to support affiliated practices and make sure that those business headaches are taken care of so that the dentist and their office staff can take care of patients and address patient concerns and not be burdened with the business aspects. So there's still so much space in order for that growth to occur. It's growing, again, more quickly than any other practice model in the dental space, but there's still a lot of room to grow. And with that, we can provide a lot of networking, a lot of education, a lot of knowledge to allow DSOs that want to grow to continue to grow and hopefully accelerate their growth.
I think you're spot on. I mean, if you think about it, when the Heartlands and the Aspens and the Pacifics of the world were building their models out, there was nobody to turn to, right? It hadn't been done before. So now you have a resource like the ADSO as an emerging group to go to and say, hey, I'm stuck here. And my guess is that many of your members have been stuck at that same point before. So It's great to have that resource that wasn't available before.
Absolutely.
So, thanks, Chris. Thanks for talking about a couple initiatives that are going to be a big deal in 2020 for the industry. And the next time I'll see you is at the summit, I guess.
Sounds good. Unless you're going to one of the other meetings between now and then.
That might be happening. There are a lot of them. All right. Well, thanks again, Chris. And thanks, everybody, for watching and listening to the Group Dentistry Now show. We'll see everybody at the summit.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody. See you then.
The Group Dentistry Now show has listeners across North and South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. If you like our show, subscribe today and please tell your colleagues about us.